Yeah, I tried to deprive you of Josh, but let me go back so you can watch the whole video. You can even see Ted Cruz walking away. Yeah, what allies on the right?
Thank you very much. I think the last few weeks have made something very clear that has always been true in American history, and that.
So Richard says Republicans does not equal conservative. Okay, this is how Josh is described everywhere. Everywhere. This is just a news article. Hawley is among the Senate's most conservative members. Let me say it again. Hawley is among the Senate's most conservative members. And that's not just any newspaper. Everybody thinks of him as conservative. So I don't think conservative means anything. I think Ayn Rand already said that. She said that decades ago. Conservative doesn't mean anything. It's empty. He is a Republican. He is considered a conservative. He is an up-and-coming presidential candidate. No. Everybody considers Josh Hawley a conservative. Who doesn't? You find me anybody who does politics, anybody engaged in political activism, anybody involved in the conservative movement who doesn't consider Josh Hawley a conservative, and Ted Cruz a conservative, and Senator Lee a conservative. These are conservatives. Well, you don't count, Richard. You're nobody, with all due respect. You know, what difference does it make whether you, or for that matter me, I consider them conservatives? What matters is whether conservatives consider them conservatives. Hawley and Tucker and Cruz, these guys are conservatism 2.0, conservatives of the 21st century. These are the central planners that want to, and conserve what? They want to conserve the states, the large state, the all-inclusive state, the power-hungry state.
I think the last few weeks have made something very clear that has always been true in American history, and that is monopoly and liberty do not go together. Monopoly is the enemy of the people's freedom.
Again, but the government breaking up those monopolies, that's cool with freedom. Using force on successful businesses, that's great with freedom.
That's certainly true of Major League Baseball. Major
League Baseball has got an exclusion from antitrust laws that it was granted by the Supreme Court in 1920-something, because it's America's sport and because it's Major League Baseball is a cartel. It's collusion, right? All the teams collude. They collude on a variety, on setting the rules of the game, on defining the schedule, on paying salaries, on how to recruit. All of that is dictated by Major League Baseball, even though every club is a private business. All these private businesses collude under the umbrella of Major League Baseball. Now, why is Major League Baseball now disliked by Senator Hawley? Not because they screwed consumers. Consumers are just fine. Not because they screwed the players are making a fortune. Not because they've done anything anti-competitive lately, differently than what they've done for the last 100 years, but because Senator Hawley doesn't like their politics. But when businesses side, like, what's his name, the pillow guy, when businesses side with conservative politics, Republicans have no problem with that. So here, we want to use antitrust. Just like, you remember when Elizabeth Warren a few weeks ago, when she tweeted to Amazon, I want to bake you up so that you can't speak like this to me. There's no difference. This is the point I want to make. There's no difference between these conservatives and Elizabeth Warren. There's no difference between the statist right and the statist left. So Major League Baseball, that evil corporation, that massive business, yes, they're moving the All-Star game. How horrific is that? It's not that. It's that they've given the Republican Party a slap. Now, I don't agree with Major League Baseball. I did a whole show about the Georgia new election law, and how it's no big deal. But these people are running a business. They've decided to move it, maybe because they have political views or whatever reason. It's their right, private property. And the answer from our politicians, Elizabeth Warren and Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, Mike Lee, is to use political power, the power of the gun, to penalize them. And of course, this is what Trump was after. This is what all politicians are after. They want more power over American businesses. They want to be able to control their gender political businesses. They want them on their side, not on the other side. So it's all about power. It's all about political power. It's all about the state getting more involved in our economic, our personal lives. It's all about penalizing people who hold ideas that are different than yours, using political power to do it. For those of us who believe in separation of politics and economics, nothing is worse than this.
It's true of big tech. It's true of the monopolies that we see more and more across our economy.
Yeah, just so you don't confuse us just with MLB, he wants to go after big tech. Why big tech? Well, because, again, they're behaving in ways that Josh Hawley doesn't like. Josh Hawley doesn't like. So he wants to use the power of government to break them up. Again, he's going to be joined by Elizabeth Warren, and the entire left is going to celebrate all of this. There's basically now unanimity across a political world that it's time to break up companies. And it's not just big tech, he just said. It's all companies.
Concentrations of economic power.
That have concentrations of economic power that he will define.
Political power follows. Now, we've seen this before.
Now, why does political power follow from economic power? And what is the difference between economic power and political power? Political power is the power of the gun. Political power is the power to coerce. Political power is the power to force. You cannot decide voluntarily, I'm not going to follow the law. I'm not going to deal with government. It is not an option. Political power essentially is about force and coercion. Even good government, even good laws are not optional. Economic power is voluntary. You can walk away. You don't have to buy an Apple. You don't have to use Google. You don't have to use Facebook. You can just not use any of them, or you can use their competitors. Economic power is the power gained through voluntary transactions. It is the power gained through the creation of values and the trading of value for value. That's what generates economic power. In what circumstances does economic power translate into political power? Under what circumstances? Well, only when political power allows the government to intervene in economics, to intervene and disrupt economic transactions, voluntary exchange. When the government can come in and bar voluntary exchange, break up companies, set prices. When government can do that, then as somebody engaged in the activities of the market, I want to try to stop that. I have to try to make sure that they don't crush me and destroy my business. So I have to start getting engaged in politics. And that's what he means by economic power influencing political power. Yes, but that's only because political power has influence over them. If, as my preference would be, we separated political power from economic power, if we separated government from the economy, then there would be no interest. There would be no incentive to lobby. There'd be no reason for economic power to try to influence political power. The more power you give government, the more lobbying there will be. The more power you give government, the more economic entities will try to influence politics. So, proposing to increase the power of government, proposing to increase the role of government, proposing to increase government intervention in the economy is to propose increasing political power over economic power, which means to increase the role of economic power over political power. As long as they're not separate, as long as one has influence over the other will have influence over it. It has to be reciprocal. There's no other way the system can work. So, yeah, Hawley, you're going to get more lobbying, more economic interest trying to influence politics than less.
Follows. Now, we've seen this before in American history. I mean, this is not unfamiliar to us. A century ago, massive corporations, the railroads, U.S. Steel attempted to amass economic power and succeeded. They attempted to amass political power and for a time succeeded.
Did they? I mean, is there any evidence that big corporations in the 19th century amassed political power in the United States? They clearly amassed economic power, but he neglects to tell us how did they amass economic power? By building this country. By creating this country. What would this country be without those so-called robber barons? Without the railroads? Without Rockefeller? Without U.S. Steel? Without all those businesses who amassed, oh my God, economic power. How did they amass it? By building, by creating, by producing real values. These are the villains, though. These are the bad guys. And the heroes are wonderful politicians. The heroes, the Teddy Roosevelts of the world. The heroes, the Josh Hawleys of the world, who haven't created or produced anything. Anything. Yet they will decide who is too successful, too big, creating too much value, producing too many things, and therefore has too much economic power. How are they going to do that? By what standard, by what measure? And who are they? What gives them the right to do that? I want to transact with Amazon. My business, not yours.
And we know what the solution to that is. The solution is you break them up.
You break them up. You break them up. Use coercion to break the companies up.
The solution is trust busting. And that's exactly what needs to occur.
Here's a Republican, conservative trust buster. And proud of it. And knows that he's going to gain votes saying this. Going to gain votes saying this. This is where the Republican Party is. This is why we don't really have allies today in politics. This guy is...
This is about preserving the ability of the democratic process to go forward. The fact that Major League Baseball would get together and try to punish a state because the elected representatives of that state and the elected governor of that state settled on a law to preserve election integrity is unbelievable.
Why is it unbelievable? Josh Hawley and many, many other people on the right celebrate. I mean, literally celebrate. Every time a company leaves California, every time the democratically elected government of California raises taxes democratically, increases regulations democratically, expands the welfare state democratically. And when Elon Musk said, "I'm leaving," these guys celebrated. You see the hypocrisy? How dishonest these people are? But it's when it's a law that they oppose, nobody is allowed to leave. You really do think, you guys really do think that that wall on our southern border is built to prevent people from coming in? You better watch it with people like Josh Hawley, because that wall will come in handy when they want to limit our ability to leave. How dare you leave America after everything America's invested in you? How dare you leave America after all the goodies you've gotten in America? They say that to corporations. They say that to businesses all the time. When is it going to be expanded to individuals? It's just a question of time, I think. If you want to leave, you have to pay a big fine. Well, that already exists. If you want to leave the United States, you pay a big tax, special tax for leaving. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. We think we live in a free world, in a free country. And these guys, some of you think these guys represent freedom. God.
Of course, Major League Baseball is not the only one. We had news just this past weekend that 100 CEOs of the largest corporations in the world met together to talk about how they are going to launch some sort of plan to influence other states across the country. This is exactly what the railroad barons tried to do a century ago. It's exactly the same thing. It's trying to control the democratic process.
How is leaving a state trying to control the democratic process? How is the fact that you say, "I'm not going to do business in this state," trying to control the democratic process? I don't want to do business in the state. I don't like its laws. Now, if they're lobbying, and yeah, then you have to think about how do you stop lobbying. I told you how to stop lobbying. The only way to stop lobbying is to stop giving power to politicians like Josh Hawley to control the economy, and then you'll stop lobbying. But this idea that if I don't want to do business in your state, that is me trying to impact the democratic process. I wonder if he says that about California. Oracle is leaving California. Is that Oracle trying to influence the democratic process in California? And since you agree with Oracle, you don't like the Democrats in California, is that okay?
It's trying to leverage economic power to exert political influence. It's trying to push forward a particular political and ideological agenda.
Yeah, just like you do.
The answer to this now is the same as the answer a century ago. You got to break them up. So it's time for a new round of trust busting in the United States. Major League Baseball is a great place to start. This is why I support Senator Lee's legislation. Proud to join him and Senator Cruz on it. It's time that we sent a clear signal that, first of all, there shouldn't be these dramatic carve-outs in our antitrust laws, like the one the Supreme Court made up for Major League Baseball. And it's also time that we sent the signal that no corporation is above the law, that no corporation should be able to be a power in a state unto itself, whether...
Which corporation is a power in a state unto itself? The difference is, and this is where it's confusing economic and political power, corporations cannot be a power in a state on their own because they cannot wield political power. They cannot coerce, they cannot force. Only you can, Senator Hawley, because you have political power. As big as Google is, as big as Apple is, as big as Major League Baseball is, they don't wield political power. You do. You're the ones, all of us, should be worried about and trying to restrain your power because you're the one who actually wields a sword.
Talking about Major League Baseball, or whether we're talking about big tech or big pharma or big banks.
There you go. It's not just big tech. For those of you who think this is all about big tech, it's big pharma. He's opposed to big pharma because there's not enough competition in pharmaceuticals. Not enough competition. None of those biotech companies, they don't exist. They don't, And what did he say? Big tech, big pharma, big banks, big banks, big banks. Evil big banks, of course. Can't allow those evil big banks.
These corporations exist to serve our democracy, the people of the United States, and ultimately competition.
Companies do not exist to serve the United States of America, its people. And they certainly do not exist to serve competition. Every business is trying to accumulate, every business, no matter how small, is trying to accumulate economic power. Every business is trying to beat its competition. It's trying to gain market share. It's trying to gain profitability. I mean, the level of ignorance is astounding. And I think it's particularly shocking of Ted Cruz and Mike Lee, who I thought knew better, and I think do know better. But you see, this is the thing. They know where the Republican Party is. They know where the votes are in the post-Trump era. And the votes are not in free markets. The votes are not in the Constitution. The votes are not with the Founding Fathers. The votes are with a populist, anti-corporation, anti-success, anti-voluntary transaction and trade, nationalistic, central planning American government. That's where the votes are. And that's what we get. That's what we get. They know. They understand politics better than I do, better than you do. I understand economics better than they do, but they know politics better than me. And they know that to win, to set himself up to be president of the United States, Josh Hawley needs to have these positions, needs to have this view with regard to competition.
Free, open competition to serve our democracy, the people of the United States, and ultimately competition, free, open competition.
Yeah, free, open competition, without government intervention, without government deciding who's a winner and who's a loser. That is free competition. That's what Josh Hawley doesn't want us to have.
The guarantor of liberty. It's what protects the people's liberty. It's what
No, what protects the people's liberty is you, supposedly. It's your job is to protect liberty. Not breaking up monopolies, but stopping the breakup of monopolies, stopping the use of force, of coercion. That's your job, to protect liberty. But you do the opposite.
It's our democratic process, and we've got to act now to ensure that there is that free, robust competition again in all sectors of our economy, and Major League Baseball is a great place to start. I'm delighted to join this legislation.
All right. They want free, open competition where they get to choose the winners and losers, not the marketplace. The marketplace is chosen. It's chosen. Big tech is the winners. The marketplace has chosen many companies out there as winners. Josh Hawley is proposing legislation, not only with regard to MLB, Major League Baseball, which he signed off on, but here's some other aspects of what Josh Hawley calls trust busting for the 21st century. This is an act, Trust Busting for the 21st Century Act. It would, here's some examples. It would ban mergers and acquisitions by firm with a market cap over $100 billion. $100 billion is too big. Anything over $100 billion, you can grow, but you have to grow organically. You cannot buy other companies if you're over $100 billion. What if competition demands that you buy those companies? What if competition demands to have robust, free competition? You have to grow in size to, let's say, $200 billion? No. Josh Hawley, our central planner in chief, our Platonic philosopher king, is telling us that $100 billion you can't grow bigger than that. It's wrong to grow bigger than that. Right? And this is perfect, consistently with the Democrats. You know, Elizabeth Warren, I wouldn't be surprised if she signed up to this legislation.
And to begin with, I wonder if I can ask you to capsulize. I know this is difficult. Can I ask you to capsulize your philosophy? What is Randism?
First of all, I do not call it Randism, and I don't like that name. I call it objectivism.
All right.
Meaning a philosophy based on objective reality. Now let me explain it as briefly as I can. First, my philosophy is based on the concept that reality exists as an objective absolute. That man's mind, reason, is his means of perceiving it. And that man needs a rational morality. I am primarily the creator of a new code of morality which has so far been believed impossible, namely a morality not based on faith.
On faith.
Not on faith, not on arbitrary whim, not on emotion, not on arbitrary edict, mystical or social, but on reason, a morality which can be proved by means of logic, which can be demonstrated to be true and necessary.
All right. All right.
Now, may I define what my morality is?
All right.
Because this is merely an introduction. My morality is based on man's life as a standard of value. And since man's mind is his basic means of survival, I hold that if man wants to live on earth and to live as a human being, he has to hold reason as an absolute, by which I mean that he has to hold reason as his only guide to action, and that he must live by the independent judgment of his own mind, that his highest moral purpose is the achievement of his own happiness, and that he must not force other people, nor accept their right to force him, that each man must live as an end in himself and follow his own rational self-interest.
May I?
All right, before we go on, reminder, please like the show. We've got 163 live listeners right now, 30 likes. That should be at least 100. I figure at least 100 of you actually like the show. Maybe there are like 60 of the Matthews out there who hate it. But at least the people who are liking it, you know, I want to see a thumbs up. There you go. Start liking it. I want to see that go to 100. All it takes is a click of a thing, whether you're looking at this. And you know, the likes matter. It's not an issue of my ego. It's an issue of the algorithm. The more you like something, the more the algorithm likes it. So, you know, and if you don't like the show, give it a thumbs down. Let's see your actual views being reflected in the likes. But if you like it, don't just sit there. Help get the show promoted. Of course, you should also share. And you can support the show at JeronBrookShow.com/support, or on Patreon or Subscribestar or Locals, and show your support for the work, for the value hopefully you're receiving from this. And of course, don't forget, if you're not a subscriber, even if you just come here to troll, or even if you're here like Matthew to defend Marx, then you should subscribe, because that way you'll know when to show up. You'll know what shows are on, when they're on. You'll get notified, right? So, yes, like, share, subscribe, support. Like, share, subscribe, support. There you go. Easy. Do one or all of those, please.